Tom Torero, podcast 29, back in seedy Soho, back in London, back in my old room, which is now occupied by John from the other podcast. All right, John?
Hello, Tom.
All right, mate, it was roughly 30 days ago. I think we're over 30 days now. Maybe 32 days ago, 33 days ago. We were sitting in Baker Street, drinking beer, drowning our sorrows in your cake stories, masturbating, not literally, mentally masturbating over the pain and sorrow that is the Day Game Journey. And it was a very popular podcast.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that, but thank you for that.
No, like we said, guys love the pain. It's too suspicious when the journey is just so perfect and clean. So it's good to be back. We've just had a greasy fry-up in the middle of seedy Soho. It's weird being back. My mind's all over the shop because I don't really know where I am, what the time is. I'm still wearing these same clothes. I'm on my way back to Cardiff. But I was going to catch up with John anyway, so we thought, fuck it, let's put a mic on. And John's you're going to ask me some questions about the tour.
I am. I've just finished watching your previous video, your strange little bagpacking
Porn.
video, your bagpacking geek porn. I enjoyed that very much.
Travel porn, mate.
Although you didn't itemize exactly how many underpants and socks
That's coming.
you were carrying, but I left that in the comments for the next one.
Comments.
But I really enjoyed watching your videos. Real lifestyle porn, fantastic music, fantastic editing. You have hidden talents. How was it? How was your tour? Come on, tell us.
It was fast. It went by very quickly. 30 days sounds like a lot for people. You know, when you go on holidays that are 7 days to the beach, 30 days seems a lot. But when you're constantly pushing it, I was constantly doing some kind of hustle, whether that was like video editing, waiting for a train, a shitload of coaching, too much coaching in retrospect, especially in New York City. That was mental. It was wake up, coach, and then sleep.
Is Day Game, is it really popular in New York?
Yeah. So first message from this tour, where are the world hubs for Day Game? Well, obviously London. That talk we did in London, there were over 100 guys. New York was massive. Not, I would say, many active guys, but there's an interest. Guys that are hobbyists, you know. And then weirdly, number 3 would be Sydney. Sydney has a tiny city centre in the CBD. Weirdly, there's 30, 40, 50 guys who are pretty active. So they're the global hubs, if you like. LA less because it's so spread out. South Africa, tiny. New Zealand, tiny.
I'm surprised that you say not many people do it in LA, Tom. I thought that would have been all the rage there.
Yeah, you'd think so with the game and all that. It's weird. It's like there's a time machine going on the west coast of America. I guess club game's massive. I saw a lot of funny indirect game going on. I saw some boot camps with, really old school game happening in Santa Monica. But what we do, the London Day Game stuff, it's, how many guys did I see? Maybe 2, and one of them I knew, a mate of mine, Jeff, who's very good, lives in Las Vegas. So yeah, it's there for the taking. But logistics in LA, pretty shit. New York, unbelievably good.
LA, I guess it's spread out and you have to drive everywhere, so none of these meet the girl at Oxford Circus, cup of tea in Piccadilly, walk her down to your pad on the embankment type scenarios are possible, right?
Yeah, just car culture, people living in bubbles, there's nobody lost walking around. I one day just went for a walk in West Hollywood and a guy wound down his window and asked me if I was okay because I was walking.
That's unbelievable. But surely there are naive, starstruck young actresses working everywhere.
There are indeed. That's who I stumbled upon. I can't remember the number of the video, but that was a lovely little weird serendipitous moment as I showed a student Project Hollywood, or what remains of Project Hollywood, just by Mel's Diner, which in itself is a legendary venue. A dreamy yes girl appeared. She had moved to LA to find her star on the Walk of Fame from San Francisco. Very hippie-ish, so esoteric it was unbelievable. She ticked the Neil Strauss boxes of palm reading, cube. She was fucking asking me about astrology, you know. She wore a thing around her neck like a lucky pendant, and this was yards from the house of the game. I was like, somebody's smiling. Neil Strauss is smiling.
This is quite unbelievable. So you had time for your own extracurricular pursuits during your world tour, am I to understand?
It was hard. That's what she said. But it was weird. Did I do any solo day game? No, probably not. But because luckily I was teaching, I always had an excuse to do an approach. Students ask you to approach. You know this thing about you get a weird boost of energy when there's a student anyway, however lethargic you are. There's pressure because they think you're the person that, they've known about, however jet lagged you are and tired you are. So yeah, the times I got laid this tour were thanks to students, often students pushing me into set. That girl on that street, a student pushed me into that one.
Oh, so what were the guys like that you met, this international secret society of day gamers? Tell me a bit about the guys.
Yeah, it's very interesting that was one of my aims of this tour, to see the day game community around the world, to work out what's going on. Because in London, we obviously know the guys are active. In New York, like I said, more hobbyists, so interested, but not very active. Sydney, active, and then just little niche communities in Auckland and Cape Town. I think, when guys come to the talk, they must therefore be interested in day game, yeah? You wouldn't come to a day game talk unless on some level you were interested in day game. I mean, you could be interested academically, but my guess is you're interested in pussy. And I said that to all the guys. So we are, on a global level, underestimating approach anxiety. I mean, that clearly hasn't gone away. That's clearly a horrible beast of burden. It's crippling. Let's say out of all the guys that came to my New York talk, a tiny fraction were actually doing it most days in New York. And what a city to live in and not do it. So therefore, by definition, all the other guys in the room had AA. Because they liked day game, they were interested in day game, they wanted to do day game, but they didn't do it. So AA, the ego, whatever you want to call it, it's a beast. And yeah, I was joking to you about this before. There was a few guys in every audience, interestingly, from London, even in the small venues, even when I did Cape Town and Auckland. There was a couple of guys, and they'd wait till the questions, or they'd even wait till the beer afterwards, come up to me and then say something along the lines of this, like, I'm here not because I do day game, I used to be interested in day game, or I used to do day game, but now I'm beyond that, I'm building my life, I've got this going on, I like to integrate it into my life, or when I see that girl at work, so I like to, one guy said, I'm in it for building connections. He said, Tom, what are you really in it for? Define really what success with women is, because for me, it's about building connections, blah, blah, blah. And if you've listened to my other podcast, that might ring like alarm bells, white knight alarm bells.
Yeah, this sounds a little gamma-y.
You talk a lot about gamma definition.
Gammas are.
You'll have to define it for a lot of people.
Gammas are the sort of cleverer than average, nerdy guys who tend to think they're always right about things. They do jobs like IT, or they like having a secret little system of which they're better at than everybody else.
Intellectualizing the answer.
Yeah, intellectualizing things. They're very female in a lot of their mindsets and emotions. They tend to try and change the reality of the world around them rather than change themselves, because they have a lot of deep self-esteem problems. They're the guys who take up weird forms of kung fu that don't require them to ever fight anybody, or set up the Christian society at university, or you might go to like a language exchange evening in your local city and find there's one of these characters is running the place and stalking around, bossing everybody about. It's like his own little kingdom.
But the white knight thing comes into it, that even though they're playing this moralistic role, why would they come to a day game niche talk by Tom if they weren't on some level interested in pussy? And I always started off the talk saying, let's not hide why we enjoy day game, guys, But yeah, they were quite, I wouldn't say angry, but they were having a go at me for this debaucherous, decadent lifestyle, almost saying, how dare you treat women like trash, white knight, it's shallow what I'm doing. Like one of them even mentioned my lifestyle in terms of traveling and not having a job as being irresponsible. So there's this, they hang on to higher values, whether that's religious, moral, very, as you said, female orientated.
Well, to me, it sounds a bit like the Shakespeare quote, "Me think the lady doth protest too much."
Yeah, why?
People who aren't really living congruent to their innermost values, they're always trying to paper over the cracks constantly. They're like, in the mind's eye, you could say, like the blackboard of the mind, they're constantly writing on that blackboard to remind themselves that what they're doing is actually right, even though they feel odd flutters of terror and denial now and again. And one thing people like to do is project their worldview, especially gammas, onto other people and convince them of why, in fact, they're wrong or they're right, and that.
You see, a classic example is in comments, huh? Blog, you know this very well. Blog comments that are intellectualized and long. YouTube comments that are aggressively logical with references and long, and then they'll counter-argue.
Yeah, you see this all the time. A lot of those guys are just too gamma to help. They're so closed in to their own reality, and they prowl around blogs. They get a favorite blog and they gradually, over a course of a few months, leave longer and longer comments until they get thrown off, and then they find a new blog to go, and they just try and convince the blog writer why they're wrong, and in fact they are right and know everything.
I had a go at one in Auckland. Like, if it was you, mate, we finished on good terms because in the end he apologised actually. And said that he didn't do game, and he tried day game, but it didn't go very well. He had issues with it, so he was angry with day game. I think that's why he'd come to the talk. Is this the same as in the last podcast we talked about Field of Dreams? Where you create this reality and they will come, build it, and they will come. These guys are something different. What you call the gamma guys in the audience are somehow darker. I know they're building a reality, but it's quite impenetrable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, gamma guys, we're all getting very sort of technical into.
Oh, but it's good, man.
Into things here, but gamma guys are a bit different from Field of Dream guys. Field of Dream guys are usually what would be known as higher beta guys. Fairly pleasant, usually very pleasant.
Yep.
Successful. They've built a business. They have a good job. They're amiable.
Gym is a big thing.
They go at the gym, they have money, they're relaxed, they speak another language, they've done hobbies. They can even have female friends, they have many friends.
On the surface, when you meet these guys, you think, great.
Yeah, they tend to get stuck in the Field of Dreams problem. Gammas are more nerdy, more brooding, more intelligent, a bit darker. They fantasize more about the future and themselves. They're more brittle. They're more likely to be frame controlling or dominant or weaselly when you meet them. But they share similar problems, which is that they don't really approach. They're both avoidant. Now gammas don't approach because gammas have created this eggshell of a reality around themselves, that they're X, Y, Z. That they are nice people, that they are very intelligent. Gammas all believe they're incredibly intelligent, and that ultimately they're wrong and the whole world's, they're right and the whole world is wrong. And that deep down they're incredibly attractive. So if they go and approach women and women say no, that's very threatening to that reality. Pretty much same thing happens to Field of Dreams guys.
If you shockingly didn't listen to podcast 28, then I'll just come back to our definition of Field of Dreams, in that it's something that's become very apparent in the community, I'd say, in the last couple of years. And from my American stint of the World Tour, it's epidemic. Okay, there's blogs, there's YouTube channels, there's companies that teach, whatever you want to call it, some kind of form of lifestyle game, which is, in a nutshell, cold approach is over. You don't need to cold approach. It's actually low value if you cold approach. It's beneath a man. A man should never chase girls on any level. So therefore, what can you do? Well, Americans are obsessed with the gym. Young guys, especially West Coast, obsessed with it because it's, build it and they will come. Obviously cars, obviously lifestyles, parties, pool parties. That's what Vegas is based on. A lot of Hollywood is based on. You need to hang around in these social circles. It's the classic American dream. Now, caveat that I always repeat, there's nothing wrong, of course, with earning lots of money and being in amazing shape, as I am, as John is, towering figures of world's strongest man, obviously. And that's why we get laid. But by doing game anyway, that's why I call it the Trojan horse. A lot of that stuff sorts itself out. And as I said in the last podcast, some of the best gamers I know are scruffy bastards, poor, dirty, filthy, just obsess about pussy. And that really angers the field of dreams, guys. And I had a few guys in the audience where you had that kind of question again, that, again, that's a reality check. Hang on a minute. You have that analogy with gold, what did you say to your student?
I had a student. Actually, I've had a couple of guys recently, and they've been Field of Dreams guys, and I've started calling it the 40-year-old man's disease, because they tend to be late 30s or in their 40s, and these are guys who are intelligent, they're disciplined, they've had their own business, or they've done very well at work, they own property. They're fit, they have good fashion, they've got hobbies that they're good at,
Yeah.
They've got friends, they've got family. Everything's sorted through their own hard work. This is through discipline and hard work.
They're often very social.
Yeah, they're very social, and they're very, very comfortable. This is the problem. They're so comfortable that everything in their life's in fact perfect apart from this woman problem they talk about. And they're too comfortable, and they're too far away from understanding the work rate and the pain and the effort that's required to get women. And what I say to the guys is, it's like you've been living in a country that uses gold as a currency. So let's talk about, the Middle Age or 300 years ago, whatever, in Europe, they've been working furiously hard, and they've saved a ship full of gold, and they've navigated to the Orient, and they've found Japan or China, and they want to trade, and they get off the boat. There's these little men running around, and they stack up all the tea and the silk, and then the Chinese look at the casks of gold and say, "What's that funny yellow metal? It's worthless because we only use silver."
Yeah.
So these guys have spent decades honing their lives and working, but the actual work that you need to do with women hasn't been done at all.
So to tie the two groups together, the much more introverted gammas, if you like, and I should point out that you talk a lot about this, and I talk about this because we've come from that background of an angry, introverted intellectual. So I'm not really bullying these guys, because that's how I recognize them, because that was me and that was you on some level, yeah. But okay, what do both of these groups have in common? The gammas who are sitting on their computer writing long replies on YouTube, and the guy who's in the sports team, at the gym, but still weirdly comes for coaching. And they always surprise me when they turn up for coaching and they're in great shape and they're 38, and he's really chatty, and you think, well, this is going to be easy, and you push him in. What's the problem? It's ego defense, isn't it? It's avoidance. And I finish my below the belt talk by saying two things to the guys, and I think it's similar to what you were saying earlier. So I'll do my two, and I think they relate to your two. I say to the guys, if you want to get better at day game, number one, approach more. That's it. Because, we could all approach more. Of course, there's spam approaching. That's a little caveat. Don't be a spam approacher. But just approach more, and the laws of the universe will give you more pussy. And number two, I say, don't hide your dick. We all hide our dicks, Field of Dreams guys, gamma guys, game guys. That's a hard one. Don't hide your dick. Really, really hard. But you were saying both those categories, well, all men on planet Earth can listen to 2 bits of your advice that you give your clients, yeah?
Yeah, my 2 pieces of advice well, there's two core principles of game, which are number one, approach. It's the same as yours.
Intelligently.
Intelligently. Don't spam.
Yeah.
Number two for me is learn to deal with rejection. Make rejection meaningless.
Yeah, that's inner game ninja stuff, because that's a mindset.
Yeah, that's very important, and that is where the Field of Dreams guys fall down. This is what I was on about with the gold versus silver, that they see rejection as a criticism or as a negative review of themselves and their value. They're building up their value their whole lives, and they don't see why women, to them, I hear this a lot, why they should have the opportunity to reject them.
It's very painful.
Why should these girls who are maybe haven't achieved empirically as much as these guys have achieved, why should those girls get the chance to say no to their magnificence?
Yeah. When I used to teach boot camps, you can guess the guys that didn't come back on the second day or disappeared even on the first day. It was the bankers. It was very well dressed, good looking, in shape guys with big egos in other areas. But just by being rejected 10 times in central London on Saturday, that meant on Sunday they just couldn't take it, because that's really upsetting, arriving and working out that your gold is meaningless. So the hustle that they are used to pulling, the banking job, the shirt and shoes, the watch, none of that really matters in central London on a Saturday, so it really pisses them off. And rejection fucking hurts. And that comes back to our first point about guys in the audiences all over the world. What's still the number one sticking point? It's the anxiety. Why have we got anxiety? Well, both me and you agree that it's because your ego gets a slap. It's reality wake up, isn't it? And we don't fucking like it. In the night you can drink beer, but in the day it really hurts, and people underestimate this. So think of the guys, especially in a city like New York. They're not doing it because it's too fragile, man. And these guys are living in nice apartments in Upper West Side Manhattan.
These guys, this is the beta myth, really. These guys, this is news to them. Most guys struggle and work and fight from, very, very young in their lives to achieve things. Sort of implicitly suggested that they'll get their karmic payback.
Yeah. Oh, you talk about that in your book, Beta Karma.
Yeah, I mention quite extensively in my book about beta. I call it beta karma, or because I was a gamma karma, which is my earlier model for getting girls was just live my life right, work hard, achieve, get a house, be successful, be really nice, and at some point magically the universe will reward me with girls.
Build it and they will come. That's literally what it is. That's why we call it Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah, and it's gold. And I'm sorry, but women only deal in silver. You need to go out and you need to do things which bring you closer to success with women.
Well, that's the hustle. I always say hustle, hustle, hustle. And that's why casinos don't like these groups of people that can come and play blackjack on a sneaky level.
Well, it's a hack. The nature of primal man is not to approach a lot, and that rejection is very bad. So by subverting those two primal urges, that's the most primitive, basic, effective game you can possibly do, because other men don't.
But let's weave in some positivity into the end of podcast 29, because it sounds almost like we're having a go at either camp. And like I said, to remind you, well, we've sneakily weaved in your book there, Jonathan, which I've been given a copy today, I should say, whilst having a greasy spoon reunion with John. He's handed me what looks like a Victorian tomb. It looks like an early Sherlock Holmes, or it's fantastic. It's very Londony. It's very British. It's remarkable. Just a presentation. I'm going to read it on the train back to Wales. But that book is the story of the gamma to the acceptance, isn't it? Through pain, and it's the story of ego smashing and recreation and build up, and you know, we laugh about the other podcasts we did, and guys, that's what guys have been saying to me. They enjoy that, the pain, the cake eating story in the alley. You know, but that this is what we're talking about. That it's not all bad news. It's not like you're stuck in beta camp, in gamma camp, and you're not stuck in lifestyle design. You can change, and cold approach is the cold medicine, huh?
Yeah, you can definitely change. I've changed. You've changed. People we know, like Nick, have changed. I mean, you might have a couple of nervous breakdowns on the way, like I did, which are gruesomely described in my book.
What's the book called? I'm waving it around.
It's called Death by 1,000 Sluts. Part 1, How to Fail at Pickup.
My mum's gonna love it. Can I read the? Can I read the back?
Yeah.
I'll try and do it in an audio book voice. We should get somebody to do an audiobook of this. It'd be fantastic. Or you should record the audiobook. Being terrible with women isn't easy. It takes a lifetime of planning. One day, John woke up and found... I feel like I'm a primary school teacher. One day, John woke up and found himself middle-aged, depressed, and involuntarily celibate, with no more understanding of women than a medieval peasant had of particle physics. I'm imagining Baldric in Blackadder there. What was to be done? Sucked into the dark and secretive world of pick-up artists, he decided to reinvent himself and approach 1,000 women on the streets of London. Surely one would fuck him. Several nervous breakdowns later, this is his story. Oh, the anticipation, Jonathan. I've been waiting for this book. You've been teasing me, as I am now teasing the listeners. But it's been quite a long time coming. We're going to devote a whole podcast to this another time, because first I want to read it. But I know it's full of the stories. And if it's anything like the cake eating story, it's going to be gruesomely fantastic. But it's a legitimate point. We're talking about change. We're talking about facing this beast, which is reinventing yourself. Fuck this, I am enough. Be myself. No, guys like you and me wanted to change, and the change is quite painful.
Yeah, it's very... I can tell guys in about 10 seconds how to get out of this trap. Go out, talk to women, and learn that their rejections are not a judgment on you, and are not meaningful, and you shouldn't judge them for it either. They've got every right to. It's water. It'd be like water. It's water off a duck's back. You just flow. Just go out, talk to girls, and if they say no, it's fine. Just talk to some more.
And why that works is because it's real world feedback, yeah? The other stuff that you can try is not giving you the real world feedback. The thing we don't like is when the girl looks at us and you know she's looking at something that you're not happy with.
Yeah, the caveat to what I've just said is that if you're a higher beta, this will probably be fine. If you're a gamma and you do what I've just said, you'll have a gamma frame inversion meltdown collapse.
Yeah.
And probably have several nervous breakdowns.
Chernobyl is going to be like
Yeah, it's going to be... You're going to freak out when you realise the you that you thought you were isn't really you.
But what's the alternative? I keep saying to guys.
Well, stay gamma the rest of your life and marry a Japanese woman.
Harsh but fair.
Yeah,
But, you know,
but if you pull through it,
yeah.
you will become less gamma. You'll move to sigma and you'll become a nicer guy.
Yeah, building something else and they will come. Resilience to cold approach being the medicine. All right, if you want to sample this book at the same time as me, they can buy it now, can't they, John? Can I put a link below? Is there some kind of link?
Yeah, stick a link below. It's on Lulu and there's a link on my blog.
There can't be many books on Lulu called Death by 1,000 Sluts. It's very Lulu-like.
They weren't sluts. It just, it's the Chinese Death by 1,000 Cuts.
I get it. It's going to be great. So that's below. I'll put your email again, John, because I'm in Britain now. I'm in the UK. I'm in London doing... I'm going to upsell something now. Fuck you. This is my podcast. I'm going to upsell my own event. Where is it? On the next two Saturdays, Saturday the 22nd and Saturday the 29th. In central London, I'm going to be doing 2 Saturday sessions. I'm calling it Saturday Street Hustle instead of a boot camp because... I'll talk about this another time, but I'm not convinced the bootcamp model works that well. So I'm doing immersion sessions, in-field, 5 hours, 2-to-1 student to instructor ratio, with the usual mics and handbook and feedback. 5 hours, so 22nd and the 29th. If you're interested in that coaching, and it's a cheaper price than obviously one-on-one private coaching would be, then it's first come, first served. I'm not in London a lot. In September I'll be off again, so just email me, tom@tomtorero.com. Like I said, John's email is below. John, you do inner game coaching. You are Mr. Inner Game Ninja, aren't you?
Well, yeah, at the minute I am. So if you want to work on any of these issues we talked about, you know how to contact me.
Yeah, the email's below. And that's more than enough for today. I think that's more than half an hour, but fuck it, it's another good one. The next podcast I do, I might talk more about my travels, I don't know. I feel like I've milked that to death with the videos. But I'll be back in London, like I said, and I'll catch up with John. And once I've read the book, Jonathan, I'm going to have a list of questions. Pain, probably. Lots of painful stories and cake. All right, that was podcast 29. Cheers for listening. Ta-da.
Cheers, bye-bye.